2 races. That's all it took for Red Bull to replace Liam Lawson after his promotion to the top team. From showing promise at V-Carb to qualifying P20 in Shanghai, Lawson's dramatic fall might be the fastest driver collapse in recent F1 history. But is Lawson really to blame? Or is he just the latest victim of what many insiders call the poison chalice? The cursed second seat at Red Bull that has chewed up and spat out Gasly, Albon, and now seems to be finishing off Perez too. If there's one thing that Red Bull Racing has perfected, beyond developing championship-winning cars, it's creating what many in the paddock now refer to as the poison chalice. Since 2019, the team's second seat has chewed up and spit out driver after driver with such regularity that it's become a predictable pattern rather than coincidence. The numbers tell a damning story. 4 different drivers in 5 years have cycled through that second Red Bull seat, each following a remarkably similar trajectory. What makes this pattern particularly fascinating isn't just the turnover rate, but the quality of talent being discarded. These aren't mediocre drivers, they're race winners and podium finishers who suddenly can't perform once they sit beside Max Verstappen. Let's rewind to 2019. Pierre Gasly arrives at Red Bull with genuine momentum, having impressed everyone at Toro Rosso with his speed and racecraft. The Frenchman's promotion seemed logical and well-deserved. Yet within just half a season, Gasly was demoted back to the junior team, his confidence in tatters after consistently qualifying and finishing well behind his teammate. The fascinating epilogue to Gasly's story reveals the true nature of Red Bull's second seat problem. After returning to the junior team, he achieved something remarkable, an actual race win at Monza in 2020. This wasn't luck or circumstance, it was a demonstration of the genuine talent that had seemingly evaporated during his Red Bull tenure. The driver hadn't changed, only the environment had. Alex Albon's chapter follows an eerily similar plot. After showing flashes of brilliance at Toro Rosso, he was promoted mid-season as Gasly's replacement. Initial promise quickly faded, and despite the team's public support, Albon found himself struggling to match Verstappen's pace by margins that were simply too large to ignore. His eventual exit from the program seemed inevitable, despite his obvious natural talent. The redemption arc came later at Williams, where Albon has since reminded everyone why Red Bull valued him in the first place. His performances in machinery far inferior to the Red Bull have been nothing short of exceptional, further reinforcing the theory that something about that second Red Bull seat fundamentally undermines driver performance. When Sergio Perez arrived in 2021, there was real optimism that Red Bull had finally found their solution. Unlike his predecessors, Perez wasn't a product of the Red Bull junior system, but a seasoned veteran with race wins to his name. The Mexican's early performances seemed to validate this approach. He won races and occasionally matched Verstappen's pace. But the honeymoon didn't last. Despite contract extensions and public votes of confidence, Perez's form deteriorated dramatically. The gap to Verstappen grew wider with each passing race, sometimes stretching to over a second per lap in qualifying, margins that would be career-ending in most teams. Even with his experience and proven race-winning ability, Perez couldn't escape the gravitational pull of declining performance that seems built into that second seat. What makes this pattern particularly concerning is the magnitude of the performance disparity. Looking across the grid at other top teams, you'll typically see teammate gaps measured in tenths, not the consistent half-second or larger deficits that have plagued Red Bull's second drivers. This suggests something fundamentally different about the Red Bull environment compared to its competitors. Now Liam Lawson enters this troubling narrative as the latest victim. After showing promise at RB, his promotion to the main team followed the established template. Initial optimism quickly replaced by sobering reality. 2 races in, qualifying dead last and showing none of the pace that earned him the promotion, Lawson found himself replaced by Yuki Tsunoda, an unprecedented quick hook even by Red Bull standards. The question we need to ask isn't whether Lawson is good enough. His prior performances suggest he absolutely is. The real question is why every talented driver who sits in that second Red Bull suddenly looks like they've forgotten how to drive. What we're witnessing isn't a coincidence or a string of bad hiring decisions. It's a systemic issue that transforms the second Red Bull seat into a career-threatening position where success seems almost impossible. Behind this systemic failure lies a rarely discussed technical reality. The Red Bull car isn't actually the best machine on the grid. It's a specialized weapon designed specifically for Max Verstappen. What we're witnessing isn't just a talented driver outperforming his teammates. We're seeing a car that has been increasingly tailored to accommodate one man's unique capabilities while becoming actively hostile to conventional driving techniques. Red Bull's development philosophy has evolved dramatically over the years. What began as subtle adjustments to suit Verstappen's preferences has transformed into something far more extreme. The engineering team has progressively built a machine that amplifies Max's strengths while assuming every driver can adapt to its quirks. This approach creates a fundamental disconnect for anyone who sits in the second seat. The RB21 presents technical challenges that would confound even the most experienced drivers. Its notoriously narrow operating window means that small setup changes can dramatically alter the car's behavior. This extreme sensitivity creates a knife-edge performance scenario. The car is either perfectly balanced or nearly undrivable. For Verstappen, who has essentially grown up alongside these evolving characteristics, these quirks have become second nature. For everyone else, they represent an insurmountable learning curve. Max thrives with specific car characteristics that most drivers find counterintuitive. He prefers a loose rear end and aggressive turn-in response, traits that allow him to rotate the car quickly but require exceptional reflexes and car control. Most F1 drivers seek a more stable platform that builds confidence through predictability. The Red Bull offers the opposite, rewarding a driving style that few have mastered and even fewer can sustain over race distances. The development direction at Red Bull follows a clear pattern. Max's feedback takes priority. When he's satisfied with the car's behavior, the development freezes regardless of how the second driver might be struggling. This creates a perpetual disadvantage for teammates who must adapt to a machine that wasn't designed with their input. It's the equivalent of asking a right-handed tennis player to compete with a racket specifically weighted for a left-handed champion. Team dynamics at Red Bull intensify these technical challenges. Christian Horner and Helmut Marko's management approach creates an environment where second drivers operate under enormous scrutiny. As the research indicates, the focus on Verstappen's performance and the high expectations placed on the second driver create a challenging environment. This pressure makes it even harder to adapt to a difficult car, creating a downward spiral of diminishing confidence and performance. Lawson's struggles exemplify this technical disconnect perfectly. His lack of confidence in getting his car to behave isn't a reflection of limited talent, but rather the inevitable result of stepping into a machine that resists conventional driving. He was driving conservatively to tone down the snaps, which inherently limited his pace. This behavior isn't unique to Lawson. It's the common thread connecting every second-seat struggle at Red Bull. The evidence is becoming increasingly clear. If Max Verstappen says the car isn't great, then nobody else stands a chance. As the research notes, the car is clearly something that only really Verstappen can drive, and a lot of the time even he doesn't like it. This statement reveals the true nature of the Red Bull car, not an objectively superior machine, but a temperamental beast that only one driver has learned to tame consistently. When examining Lawson's brief tenure, we see the same pattern that has claimed every second-seat driver since 2019. His inability to understand the nuances of the car created a vast gap between him and Verstappen. Not because he suddenly lost his racing abilities, but because the car actively punishes any deviation from Max's approach. This consistent pattern across multiple drivers with different backgrounds and experience levels proves the systemic nature of the problem. The cruel reality emerges. The second Red Bull seat isn't just difficult because of the comparison to a generational talent. The car itself actively rejects anyone who doesn't drive exactly like Verstappen. What engineers privately call the Verstappen paradox has created a situation where the car appears dominant in the right hands but becomes nearly undrivable for anyone else. So what does all this tell us about Liam Lawson? Far from being Formula One's newest disappointment, he's become another casualty of an impossible situation. Lawson himself acknowledged his performance shortcomings with remarkable self-awareness, stating, "I didn't have enough time to grow, but that is the reality of Formula One." This humility reveals something profoundly broken in Red Bull's approach. As Tsunoda prepares for his home race at Suzuka, he faces the same Verstappen-shaped mold that has broken driver after driver. The truth is painfully clear. Red Bull isn't failing to find talented teammates for Max. They're failing to create an environment where any teammate can succeed. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, as I will catch you on the next one.